Hey, welcome back to my channel. My name is hautemesstom and thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today we are going to be looking back at everything I purchased in March of 2023. I cannot emphasize enough that I mean March of 2023. I know that the year is 2024. These are a year later reflections on things that I purchased. If you comment, if you're a loyal subscriber of mine, if you say in the comment section, I was wondering if this was supposed to say 2024. No, I'm communicating this to you so clearly right now. I mean what the title says. Okay. So anyway, as I said, we're going to look back at everything I bought in March of 2023. What I want to do when I look at things that I bought a year ago, I want to see if I still have the item that I purchased, reflect on whether or not I thought it was a good purchase, whether or not I have it, kind of decide whether or not the purchase was more motivated for my channel or if it was more motivated just by my general interest in makeup. That's kind of what we're here to figure out. So we're going to do that together. So I bought a lot last year, and I only have one thing left from March of last year. So I'm going to try to do this from the least interesting to the most interesting. I bought one of the Kaja Beauty Bento trios in, I think it was the shade Rosewater. A lot of people praise those Kaja eyeshadows. There was like a sale where they were running it like 75% off. I am like a purveyor of like indie sparkly eyeshadows. I have a ton of shades from Cliona. I have some shades from Shine by SD. I have some shades from Terra Moon. Whenever I got these into my hands after seeing so many other YouTubers kind of praise the sparkle of them, I was like, well, they have to be really good. And what I've surmised from my experience with them is that Kaja sparkles are for people who have not yet delved into the indie market to really experience sparkle. Like they're pretty, but there was nothing about the eyeshadows in this Bento trio that really spoke to me as a consumer of sparkly eyeshadow. Like I thought they were fine. I think also the expectation that I had of them being really, really beautiful only hurt it whenever I finally got it in my hands, because I was like, this is sparkly, but also 3 eyeshadows. I think you can definitely do a look with 3 eyeshadows. I didn't like the clicky way that it was packaged. I think it's like unique packaging, especially for a trio, which, you know, there's not many ways to be creative about that. Like we've seen Natasha Denona do it and it's like pretty lame. I want to see all of the shades at once if I'm opening up a package. This is just how my brain works. I know not everyone's brain works like this, but I know that probably some of you will suffer from the same affliction that I do. If I don't see it, then it doesn't exist in my brain. Like there are many things that I know that I own, but if I don't see it, if I'm like, let's say if I'm picking out a blush, if I don't know 100% for sure that's the thing I want to use, then if I open up my drawer and it's not there for some reason, like I packed it away, or you know, something like that happens, I just forget that it's there. And the same thing that happened with that Bento trio, but none of the shades even sung to me as like an individual experience. And then I was mostly kind of layering them up and it was all just fine. It was all just fine. So I decluttered it rather quickly because I was like, this is not doing it anything that some other eyeshadows that I have won't do. I will say this, those are not super expensive trios. So I think it's a good investment if like you're looking to get into that kind of thing. Indie eyeshadows are pretty expensive. Even on the cheaper side of things, you're probably paying between like $6 and $10 per shadow, and that's going to cost you the same as the trio, and it's not going to come in packaging. So it really depends on what matters to you. And for me, the impact of the shadow is more important than the experience of the packaging. And I don't even really like the Kaja packaging, so it was just kind of like overall no for me. Do I think it was a bad purchase? No, because I know now. I know that I will never buy Kaja eyeshadow again because it's just not. It's not my thing. It's not for me. It wasn't made for someone who uses makeup like me, but it does seem to work out for a lot of people. So I'm not saying that it's a bad product. So let's talk about the Haus Labs blush in Pomelo Peach. Pomelo. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it was the original packaging. I didn't know that they had even gone away. Whenever they said that they were relaunching them, I was like, where'd they go? I didn't know that that was a thing that had happened, but apparently it was because people were excited they came back, and I think they launched 2 newer shades. This isn't a new makeup release video. I enjoyed the Haus Labs blush formula. I really, really did. However, unfortunately for the Haus Labs blush, I in friend mail got the original formula of the Coral Dior blush from a friend in friend mail, and they were very similar. And A couple of times I applied one to one cheek and one to the other cheek, and there was one clear difference in them, and it was the original formula from Dior. I'm fairly certain I've heard that they've reformulated with the shade expansion, and I've heard that they're not as good. So I need to be clear that I'm speaking about the original formula. I've not compared the two newer formulas. I don't know if the Haus Labs was a reformulation. I know that you now get much less product in the Haus Labs, and they changed the packaging. Haus Labs never ceases to confound me. Like, I'm always like, you're making choices. So the blur was really the selling point of the Dior one, and like the colors were almost exactly the same. So I was just like, I'm gonna keep the one that blurs my skin. If you're new here, I love blur. I love blur. And it just, it made my cheek look nicer. And it's not that I have a lot of texture on my cheek, but having that there for whenever I do swipe it on my cheek, like maybe I do have some texture going on that day, it's just a little bit helpful. It just felt like a more sophisticated formula than the Haus Labs one. But I don't think the Haus Labs one was bad. Like the only reason I got rid of it is because it wasn't as good as the Dior. I very rarely use that Dior blush. So my thought here is that I'm glad I didn't keep both of them. Like because I think there was a time where I was like, ooh, I like them both. I like them both. I'm glad I didn't keep both of them because it's just not a color I use very often. I'm not super into peach. There's like a couple of colorways that I typically fall into. It's like, I'm going to wear orange blush. I'm going to wear a nude blush. I have some pink blushes. I've been like a little bit more into pink these days. So I'm glad I didn't keep it because it was a peach shade. The shade from Dior is called Coral, but it looked like the same. Led me down this rabbit hole. I'm like, what is peach? There are peaches that are more orange leaning. I mean, in the beauty industry, there are also peaches that lean more pink. So I don't think we as a community really know what we mean by peach, because if I can put a peach blush on and a coral blush on and they look the same on my cheek, it's like, we don't know what those colors mean. It's just a thought. I don't have the Haus Labs one anymore. Do I think it was a bad purchase? I would say yes. I wasn't really reviewing it for my channel. It was something that Kaki directly recommended to me. And that's not a bad thing because she directly recommended it to me for a reason. We were like talking, it was like a thing that happened. And I was like, okay, like, and it was during the Sephora sale. And I was like, I don't know anything about Haus Labs at that point. I had tried their foundation, but like, I wasn't really like in it. I wasn't in it with that brand. I do remember when I tried that blush, I was like, it did entice me to potentially try the bronzers because I know a lot of people celebrated those. Celebrated those bronzers. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I would try their bronzers. I tried one of their highlighters, but it was not the right shade for me. It was not the right shade for me. And I think there's a couple different highlighter formulas. There's one that's more glittery. There's one that's more smooth. And I think at this point, right now, where I'm at with highlighter, I think I prefer like a more smooth looking highlighter, like something I have on today. It didn't answer any questions really about where I'm at with Haus Labs. Haus Labs is not a brand that I think I will ever like do a deep dive on because I simply don't care about it. I'm glad I tried it, but I kind of wish that I had my money back. I guess all things considered, I wish I had whatever I spent on it. Like, I wish I had that money back because I don't think it was really worth it for me in the end. I bought the Rose Ink Skin Tint. I remember every time I put that skin tint on, it either made my skin look the best it's ever looked or not great. Not great. And there was no in between. It was so unreliable for me as like, I just never knew what experience I was going to get. It was also, I feel like it was just really, 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 really dewy, which is fine, but I think it swung too far for me in my taste. While I have oily skin and while I do like a finish that has more glow to it, I think it was just like too wet for me. But like, it really did work sometimes. I think trying that definitely left me still curious about formulas like that. And I didn't jump right to the Chanel because ultimately I decluttered the skin tint from Rose Ink. It was so inconsistent for me. I was just like, this is an unreliable product. Like, even some of the foundations that I think like look bad on me, they look consistently bad on me. I don't really like being tricked and fooled into thinking that it's going to work sometimes, but never knowing the when or why or the how of why it might work on me. So that may have something to do with me being like oily skinned. I do feel like my friends with dry skin get on a lot better with this type of product. But what I will say, I have this in my hands right now. I've been wearing this maybe like a month now. My skin always looks the same whenever I apply this one. So I have found this formula to be much more consistent for me in this type of category, pigment suspended in gel category. I used to work for a company that sold Jane Iredale, and they also have something similar to that. And I did not like that one, like at all. But it was also before I kind of understood makeup for mature skin. And now I feel like I really understand that. Not that my skin's the most mature, but I see a lot more in that kind of thing now than I did in 2019, I guess. You know, I see the value in that a lot more. I did declutter it. Do I think it was a bad purchase? No, because I'm glad I got it on sale because it was already 25% off. And my friend Daria on Instagram, she had a promo code and they stacked. So I like paid way less for it. I'm glad I paid that amount for it. If I bought it at full price, I don't think I would think that it was a good purchase, but I got a super deal on it. So that was good. And I would say at this point, that would be the only way I would buy that particular one again, whenever this one's $22, which seems like a lot for CoverGirl, by the way. But when this one's $22, the packaging is kind of negligible. The rose ink packaging is a little bit better, but it's still a thin plastic tube. So it's like, you're not even really losing that much by moving to the CoverGirl. I've never tried the Chanel one, so I can't speak to that. So I just would think if you are interested in this kind of thing, but you've never tried it, I think the CoverGirl is the way to go. I wouldn't go for rose ink, unless you're already kind of like bought into rose ink, kind of just like Haus Labs. Rose ink is a big question mark for me. I'm like, I get that you exist, but it kind of just really misses me. I want to try their concealer because I've heard good things about it for a long time. Well, I guess I kind of heard nothing about their new foundation. They launched that and it went shh. It's just like, I think I saw Rachel Ellen Rose talk about it, and I feel like she liked it, but she was the only person I heard talk about it. So I just was like, it mustn't be good, because people really kept their mouth shut. And that's not to say that I don't believe Rachel's experience with it, but I feel like whenever a new product comes out and you hear nothing about it, I feel like this is what I mean. I think it means that people respect that brand and they don't want to talk poorly about the brand, so they just choose not to talk about that particular release from the brand, and we'll talk about the next thing that brand releases. That's kind of what it feels like to me. But anyway, rose ink is not a brand that I'm super interested in. And so ultimately, happy to have tried something from it, but didn't make, again, just kind of like with the Haus Labs blush, it didn't make me want to like try more from the brand. It was just kind of like, all right, yeah, okay, I'm catching a vibe, sort of. So let's talk about the Givenchy Skin Caring Concealer. So this launched right around this time last year. It was launched right around the time of the Sephora sale. And so the Sephora sale must have started a little bit earlier last year, because all of this stuff was purchased in March at the Sephora sale. So the Givenchy concealer, everyone loves it. I remain on, it's good. It's a good concealer. For me, on my under eye, it did not look that incredible. Like, it looked good, but not as good as some other concealers have worked for me under my eyes. What I really loved it for was as an all over the face foundation. But even then, I just didn't feel like it was worth me keeping around, because it just wasn't it for me. I also took it to Vegas. When I went to Vegas, it was the only complexion product I took, because I did trust it. It's like I said, it's a good product. I have so many complexion products that aren't that work so much better for me. Not even as a concealer. I'm just talking about, like, it was a good foundation, but it wasn't the best foundation. It was a good concealer. It wasn't the best concealer I've ever used. And so I just feel like it got so much hype, and I watched so many people buy it based on other people's recommendations, that I was just kind of like, okay. So, and I mean that, like, I just mean, I was like, kind of like, okay, I hope you all really love it. And most people seem to. I feel like I'm an outlier, just trying to let people know that it's like, I don't think it's the be all end all. It was pretty forgiving to the skin, but on my under eye, there's a fold. And a lot of people talked about it being like creaseless. We were joking about it being the Tarte Shape Tape for aging millennials, because a lot of people think it's really good on aging skin. And it just, for me to have these deep folds under my eyes, and it would always get caught in there and look not good. And I feel like in the desert, whenever I was in Vegas, my skin just, we did not get along. I had to redo my makeup a couple of times when I was in Vegas, because it was just like not a great, nothing was working, like nothing was gelling because of it. It just didn't work for me. I highly recommend, if you can sample it, or if you can go into Sephora and just like apply some, not to your hand, like if you're feeling brave and bold to like put it on your face. And I'm not recommending you do that if you feel comfortable doing that. Put some under your eyes, see how it works for you before you would buy it. Because I think that buy-in is too much for you to just be trying it willy-nilly. I don't know if they make minis of any of the shades. I would sooner buy a mini. If you do like it, I think the amount of product you get is very generous, especially if you're only using it as a concealer. If I used it as a foundation, I would have been able to use it up. As a concealer, that thing would have taken me a couple of years. Like it really would have. It's a very generous amount of product, but to try it at that price point, I don't think it's worth it. This is going to sound really weird. I sometimes like being the person of dissent whenever a product's popular. And I'm not doing it just to be like spiteful, and I'm not trying to say that anyone else's experience is wrong, just to provide a different perspective and kind of like bring down the excitement around it. And I feel like a lot of people got swept up in the excitement of that release. It's going to sound so funny. If you're like 15, which I don't imagine a lot of 15-year-olds watch my beauty content, but if you're like 15, you're like, everyone lost their mind over that concealer. People in my age bracket did not everyone, but like people in my age bracket, people who have the similar concerns to me as far as like what their skin's doing. Those are the people who I feel like they got swept up in the hype. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I was so cautious even when I was like trying it for the first couple times. I was like, good, but it's not changing my life, right? And I feel like every time I pulled it out, that's just how I felt about it. I was just like, yeah, you're good, but like not what everyone talks about you. Like, you're not that good. You're just good. Do I think it was a good purchase? I do, because I felt, like I just said, it's like I enjoyed being able to provide some different perspectives on it, which a lot of my channel is that. It's just like offering a little bit of a different perspective. I'm not the beauty tuber who buys everything or gets everything sent to them. I do buy things to review. I do sometimes get PR, but like I'm not getting PR from Givenchy, right? Like, so it's like I bought it. I didn't have the same experience as everyone else, so I was glad to be able to like say my piece on it and hopefully help some people just not feel like it was something they needed to buy. And if they bought it later and it worked for them, great. But like, the hype cycle of that was pretty intense. So the last thing I bought that I don't have, and this was purchased for a video, I bought the Chanel Sublimage Le Teint, that one that came in a tub, the foundation. It's $135. So, or maybe it's more now, but it was something like that amount of money. And I bought it because Kaki and I did a video because we often like the same things. So I bought something to try that I didn't have that she had recommended already. And she tried some things that I liked. What we really learned is that we do not have the same taste in complexion products. I think the main thing is coverage. Sometimes we do align. Like right now, I'm wearing something that she really loves. I'm wearing the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Tint, and it's a beautiful product. And I've been really enjoying playing with that. You know, it's still early days for me in that product, but promising start for us. First time I put it on, I thought it looked incredible. And then the more times I wore it, the more I felt like it was sitting on my face and not really becoming like one with my skin. I think also if you watch Kaki's channel, we learned that the relationship to that worked its best when your skin was at its driest. So I have oily skin, so I probably reached my driest at the same time everyone else does, like in the winter months. So like December through maybe April. It's, you know, maybe like right around now is whenever the humidity kind of starts coming back in. We're using the heat less. The first time I tried it, my skin must have been parched. And that's like what my guess is, because I do remember really liking my first application of it. But then as time progressed with it, I still liked it. I never felt like it's not like the Rose Ink where it's like sometimes it looked good and sometimes it looked bad. It just like sometimes it didn't look quite as good as it did other times. And I don't think it was because my skin wasn't doing great that day. I just think that my skin started becoming like more hydrated. Like it wasn't needing that lotion feel, because it was a pretty thick foundation. It didn't feel heavy on the skin, but it was thick. It had a slight fragrance to it. I kept just waiting for when will this feel like it's worth $135? And honestly, other than the first application, it never really did. There are some expensive foundations that I will buy, but nothing quite that expensive. It's almost double the price of my favorite expensive foundation, which, if you're new here, it's the Dewdrop foundation from Surratt. And the thing about the Surratt one is it's not even a full ounce, but and like, I won't complain because it is just my best foundation. Foundation is so personal. And you really have to hear what people are saying. Even people who you normally like the same complexion products that they do, you really have to hear what they're saying, because it's so personal. And we all love things that other people don't love. I just didn't feel like I could confidently recommend that $135 price point Chanel foundation. And so for that reason, I just got rid of it. I was like, it doesn't feel like it's not $135 worthy to me. So I just need to move on from it. I passed it on to a friend, and it's no longer with me. Do I think it was worth it? Well, I did buy it for a video, so like it served that purpose. But as a consumer, I just think the curiosity would have gotten the better of me at some point, because again, it's sometimes nice to be a different voice for something at that price point, because while I do love luxury makeup because I think it provides the overall experience that I'm looking for from makeup, not just performance, but the interacting with it makes me feel really good. Like that's like what I'm looking for. To be able to try these things with an open mind. Because here's my pet peeve. When someone who typically purchases maybe mainly drugstore, and I mean that like as a content creator, and then they buy something really expensive, I don't think they always go into buying something at the higher price point in good faith. They're just gonna automatically in their mind go like, this can never be as good as something as inexpensive is. I also have that same bias when I try drugstore. I'm like, I feel the same way. Like, right, there's no way that's gonna be as good as what I already use. I think buy something that expensive and be like a voice of dissent that isn't just dismissing it because it's expensive, and just like really seeing if I can, if I use it and I feel like it could be justified for that price point. I like being that voice. So I think ultimately I would have bought that anyway without doing that video with Khaki. I would have eventually tried that foundation. It just would have happened. Yeah, I don't think it was a bad purchase. I think it was just something that was inevitable. And I have one more thing that I purchased. I know I bought so much in March last year. It was a brush, and I bought the BK Beauty 105 brush. If you have watched my videos for a long time, you'll know that I did this. I used to do the series called Becoming, and I guess while we're here, I've stopped choosing to do the Becoming series in the way that I used to do it for this reason. We are all humans, and humans make mistakes, and humans are flawed. And in those moments, whenever I did those, I like all those people, right? I like all those people I did those videos about. However, and this also could be said the same if someone did something like Becoming about me, and then, people decided they didn't like me or whatever. It just was like, it's a little too risky to directly associate your content with someone else all the time, unless you're doing like a collab, and then that's it is. But something about people don't often pay attention to when the videos they're watching are posted, because right now, and you might have noticed this, the algorithm is just feeding videos to people, whether they are old or new. Because I regularly now am getting comments on videos that I posted like 2 years ago. and so it's just kind of like, those people don't have any context. And so what if they find them and they think that like I'm associating myself more than I am with those people, other than like I appreciate their content, I like their because it was supposed to be a celebration of people. And I'm trying to describe this again. This is not about anyone who I've done it on. I don't want to find myself caught up in drama because I like do one of those videos. So I have ideas for like Becoming and what it could be now. It's one of those things where I'm like, I'm making it harder in my mind and I just need to do it. And I just haven't. Anyway, so that's why I haven't done Becoming video in a while. We're all people. We all have flaws. I didn't think about that at the time when I was doing those videos. Now I think about that. Again, I want to emphasize and be very clear with you, that does not mean that my feelings have changed about any of the people that I have done those videos on. It's just something I'm being more conscious of now. When I did my video where I was becoming Khaki, she used this brush and I gave her so much shit for it whenever I was doing that video. I was like, that brush is so big. Your face is so tiny. Why are you using such a big brush? So I bought it, and then I did a whole like kind of follow-up video about me buying and interacting with this brush on my own time to see how I liked it. In the video where I first tried this brush, I was a little bit perplexed by it, but over time I have come to really enjoy it. It's actually my favorite cream bronzer brush. That's pretty large. I have a pretty big head, and that kind of takes up a lot of the surface area on my head. Proportions here. What this does, because it's so big, it's not really super densely packed. There's some give. And when I first bought it, it was shaped a little more like this. And when I opened it, I was like, that doesn't even look like the same brush. But over time, as I've used it, it looks more like this, the way it looks in Khaki's video whenever I did the Becoming video. It's not so densely packed because the previous brush I was using for bronzer was this one. And like this would pick up so much product and put it so densely in a specific spot, whereas this picks up less product overall. And whenever I tap my cream bronzer in, it just looks great. I don't really have a purpose for this beyond cream bronzer, but it really, really works pretty well for that. And now I bought this with my own money. I have since become affiliated with BK Beauty. If you want to use my code, if you're ever buying from them, I do have a code with them. It's hautemess and it saves you 10% off. So, but like no pressure to use my code and no pressure to buy this brush unless you don't have it and you have been looking for a brush or cream bronzer, because I was on this like desperate hunt because I was enjoying cream formulas more, but I was so sick of applying them with my fingers because that would be like the default. And I don't really like applying my makeup with a sponge. It's not that I don't think it looks good. I just don't ever clean my sponge or remember to wet it if I do intend on using it. It's a whole hullabaloo. And I'm like, I'm just not gonna use it. So the bronzer brush is really great. So I bought it for a video. So I don't regret it buying it for that video because that video did really well for me. You know, I think that video has actually made enough money to have paid for this brush, which is not common at that time for my channel for a video to do well enough to like pay off the thing I bought to do that video. So cool. That's great. And then also, yeah, I still use it. It's still here. It's still my preferred cream bronzer brush. So I think overall, that's a win. And that was really great. A really good purchase. All right, that wraps up this video. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you are new here, I hope you will subscribe. This is a lot of what I do on my channel. I want to be really reflective of the things that I'm purchasing. I want to be really discerning about what I am about to buy or might be thinking about buying in the makeup world. I want to help myself and help you build a habit of being more discerning about the makeup that we are purchasing. Is there something in our collection that can satisfy and scratch the itch of that new thing? Is that new thing that special? Will you still want that in a couple of weeks? And I do a lot of work on myself to do the same thing because I don't want to, you know, even while I do have a channel and I do get PR, I still want the makeup that I keep around, like the most special makeup, to be my focus. Even though I, you know, enjoy getting to play with new formulas and stuff like that. So anyway, I hope you will subscribe if that sounds good to you. Make sure to like this video, share it with someone you might think will find this interesting. And I am on patreon.com and I have channel memberships. The rewards are the same no matter where you go, so it doesn't matter. It also doesn't matter what price point. The rewards are the same no matter what price point you're at. It's just like, give what you can if you'd like to give, but there's no pressure to join my Patreon. Being here, commenting, liking, and sharing is the best way to support my channel. I do additional content over there. I have a podcast with Kaja that we do weekly over there. So check that out if that's something that you're interested in. Thank you to all my current patrons and members. I appreciate you all so much. And I will see you in my next video. Remember to follow your haute and you'll find me. I'll see you in a video very soon. Go forth, tits out. Bye-bye.